Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here today because we're going to unpack a seemingly simple, everyday conversation between a mother and her daughter, Mama and Rashmi. But honestly, don't let the casual setting fool you. Tucked right inside this brief little chat is literally the ultimate blueprint for conquering high-pressure situations. We're going to look at the exact mechanics of stress, preparation, and maybe most importantly, how we measure our own success.
But before we jump into Rashmi's story, I want you to just take a second. Think back to the last time you faced a truly, undeniably daunting challenge. Maybe it was a massive presentation at work, a life-altering exam, or a really high-stakes interview. What actually happens to your mind in that exact second you realize, oh no, this is way harder than I thought? That visceral, stomach-dropping reaction? Yeah, that is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the trap of panic, specifically the physics exam.
Right, so let's dive into this. Rashmi has literally just walked through the door after taking a brutal physics final. And look, if you've ever taken a really tough science exam, you know the exact kind of pressure cooker we're talking about here. The clock is absolutely ticking, the questions start looking like a foreign language, and it feels like the walls are just closing in. Rashmi summarized it perfectly to her mom. She said, "I realized that the paper was a tough one, and I panicked." And honestly, that's our default human response, isn't it? When the difficulty level just suddenly spikes way beyond our expectations, our brain's alarm bells go totally haywire. Rashmi experiences that immediate wave of panic, but the really fascinating part of the story is what Rashmi actually chooses to do right after that moment.
This completely highlights the crossroads we all face in moments of crisis. Now, in the past, Rashmi's go-to habit was to just give in to the panic, let it wash over her. But her mom had taught her something absolutely vital. Panicking actively sabotages your own ability to handle adversity. It literally robs you of the skills you already have. So Rashmi's new approach? She actively chooses reasoning, laser focus, and unwavering competence. She decides right there in the middle of the exam hall that she's not going to be her own worst enemy.
Moving right along to Section 2, the mental pivot, and how to rationalize the challenge.
Okay, sure, a new approach sounds awesome in theory, right? But how do you actually execute that when your heart is pounding out of your chest? How did Rashmi pull off this mental pivot in real time? Well, she used pure, structured logic to basically dismantle her own fear. Step 1, she just acknowledges reality. Yes, the paper is tough, there's no denial. Step 2, she remembers her strong preparation. She anchors herself in the hard work she's already put in. Now, step 3 is the real genius part. She recognizes that if it's tough for her, someone who prepared super well, it's tough for everyone. The playing field is instantly leveled. And finally, step 4, with all that logic firmly in place, she composes herself and just starts to answer. She methodically disarms the panic bomb.
And honestly, that fourth step pivot, it directly led to this result. Rashmi said the first one took time, but I could solve it, and then one by one I got them. This is execution in action, you guys. When she chose focus over fear, she didn't try to solve the entire exam all at once. She just looked at the very first problem sitting right in front of her. It took time for sure, but she did it. And then she just carried that exact momentum forward, one question at a time.
Which brings us to Section 3, protecting your capability through Mama's wisdom.
So Rashmi is telling her mom all about this. And Mama isn't just happy that Rashmi finished the test, she's incredibly proud of how Rashmi protected her own mind. And what's really interesting here is that confidence isn't about being arrogant. It's not about assuming you're just going to breeze through and get a perfect score. As Rashmi notes, having confidence in herself was a strategic approach. It was a tool. By consciously deciding to rely on her own preparation, her confidence acted as a literal shield against the adversity of that tough exam. She leveraged her core strength.
So the crucial point is, just listen to what Mama tells her here. Let this fully sink in. You must never do anything to reduce your own capability. What an absolutely profound way to look at stress. The obstacle in front of you, the interview, the exam, the tough conversation. It is already hard enough. When you panic, you are effectively joining the opposing team. You're taking away your own intelligence, your own memory, and your own skills exactly when you need them the absolute most.
All right, let's wrap this up with Section 4. The true A grade, and redefining success. Naturally, after breaking down the whole exam experience, Rashmi asks the question literally any student would ask, "Aren't you going to ask my expected grade?" And Mama just flat out says, no. She doesn't care at all about the letter grade. Why? Because academic grades are really just a byproduct of 3 main mechanics: conquering your internal panic, trusting your preparation, and maintaining absolute focus. Rashmi had already mastered the whole process. The external result printed on some piece of paper is completely irrelevant compared to the massive internal victory she had already secured.
So, how exactly do you celebrate a massive internal victory like this? With malpua. Now, if you don't know, malpua is this unbelievably delicious traditional sweet. And Rashmi is actually kind of confused, pointing out that Mama usually only makes malpuas when she brings home good grades on her report card. But Mama insists that beating panic is the biggest A grade possible. It's such a wonderful, warm little moment that really proves we need to reward ourselves not just for the outcomes we achieve, but for the resilience we showed during the process.
And honestly, that entire shift in perspective is what brings us to Rashmi's final realization. I don't know why, but I feel so satisfied today. Guys, that is the feeling of genuine self-reliance. It doesn't come from some external validation or a teacher's red pen. That deep, unwavering satisfaction comes from knowing that when the pressure was really on, when things got undeniably tough, you held your ground. You didn't sabotage yourself.
So what does this all mean for us? I really want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. When was the last time you evaluated your own successes this way? When was the last time you gave yourself an A grade in resilience? Because the next time you face a tough paper, a crazy hard project at work, or a terrifying leap into the unknown, I want you to remember Rashmi and Mama. Trust your preparation, protect your capability, and absolutely refuse to let panic take the wheel. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you next time.